Welcome to the Empowered Embodiment Revolution, where women leaders reveal how to liberate yourself from body battles so you can follow your heart, own your power, and shine in the world. I'm Darlene Downing, and I am your host for this event, and I am delighted to be here with you today. I have with me the intuitive, open-hearted, and wise Teresa Lea. Teresa and I have known each other through social media, and I instantly had a connection to what she was sharing in the world through her posts. And so recently we had an opportunity to get to know each other on even a more deeper level. And I love the work that she's doing and how she is taking a stand for our bodies being a contribution in our lives. I am delighted to be sharing her with you today. Hi, Teresa.
Hi, Darlene. I'm delighted to be here with you.
So I'm going to give you Teresa's official bio. Her passion is empowering people to reconnect with their body's wisdom so they can get out of pain, experience deep healing, and live an authentic and vibrant life. She is an internationally recognized speaker, an author, and a healing expert. She uses her 20-plus years of personal experience and professional education to create custom experiences for her clients so they can learn to access and trust the wisdom of their bodies to create the relationships and the life that they desire. So welcome, Teresa. I'm so thrilled that you're here. I'm going to click over so we can see your gorgeous face. Hi.
Hi, I'm so delighted to be here with you, Darlene.
Feelings mutual. So I would love to dive right in and ask you to share with the listeners how you define empowered embodiment, what that means to you when you get curious about it.
Well, for me, empowered embodiment is really that place of accessing that wisdom of our body so that we live our life fully through our bodies. Our bodies are made up of these wonderful, amazing senses through which we experience life. And what I find is that in today's world, it's such an information age, and there's all this knowledge that's coming forth, and there's this place of thinking, and which is really great. And what often happens with that is there's such an aspect of being in the head and in the thinking process that many people disconnect from their body in that sense of being vitally alive to the point that sometimes they don't even remember what they ate the night before.
Right.
And yet our bodies are made up of these wonderful senses and intuitive places and cellular structure that has all this information that allows us to live life fully instead of just merely existing and living through the head, but really feeling alive through the body.
I love that. I love that. It is true. There's so many of us walking around basically as talking heads, right? like we've got these big, big heads and teeny tiny little bodies if they're there. And we're missing out on so much of this experience. I so agree. And it's not anybody's fault. It's really what we've evolved into now, don't you think? And that it's time now to get back in touch with the body and to fully embody the essence here on the planet right now.
I definitely do agree with that, because when we embody the essence of what our bodies are and who we are through the body, that wisdom that's there can actually help us take that information that is being given to us through technology or that's being downloaded to us, and when we access it through the body, then we have the knowledge and the embodiment way of fulfilling it in the world. Because what I find so often is in this place of so much information, and I don't know if you've seen this, Darlene, but people tend to get really stuck with, like, what do I do? Where do I go? What's the next step? And because there's so much stuff in the head going on that there's this what if I drop into my body? Does my body want to open up and expand when I think about this action, or does it feel constricted? You know,
Love.
so that
Yeah.
in that place of really trusting that inner wisdom that really knows what we need.
Yeah, like our head can only get us so far, I feel. It takes us to this place, and particularly on this point of evolution where we are, where you're speaking of us being surrounded and swimming in a sea of information, and how can you possibly make choices from that place is too much. You know, which way to go, what to do, and when we drop into the body and we connect, it takes us to a wisdom beyond what our thinking minds have access to. I feel it taps us into that internal wisdom and deep knowing that's really always present. It just, the external noise is so loud, and the confusion in the head is so busy that we can't hear it, and the body's there to tell us if we listen.
I totally agree.
So I'd love to hear about your journey to empowered embodiment. I know a little bit about your personal story, and I know that this wasn't always the way that you were being in the world, being empowered in your body. And I just think what I really want to create with this summit is to not to be very honest and real with what our own experiences have been and what's happened in our lives that has transformed it, just to be a contribution to other people's lives for them to choose it. So, what was your story with your body, and what was that defining moment that shifted for you where you began to change that, and now you're at this place?
Well, Darlene, thanks for asking. I want to kind of go back to something at the beginning of my life. I was born and raised in West Africa, and I had an African nanny. And what I remember very distinctly is when I was sent to boarding school at the age of 5, when I first came back, one of the things that she said to me is, she said, "Petite Teresa, you have lost the music within you." And so I wanted to share that because there's this place that has this internal music within us that we're innately born with, and that our bodies know. And indigenous cultures tend to live in with that rhythm of the body more intuitively. And I wanted to share that with you because fast forward many years later, in my 20s, there were many things that throughout my life where I struggled with addiction in different forms. And I was anorexic in high school and bulimic in college, these polarities that were happening. But there was a lot about my life that I really wasn't connected to. And if you had asked me, well, how was your life growing up? I would have said, oh, it was fine. But I wouldn't have really known what that meant because there was no recollection of memories. From very few memories from the age of 5 through the age of 16 actually. But I thought that was normal. I thought that was common. I thought everybody went around and didn't remember their childhood until I became connected to a few people that had friends that they connected with often, and they would share stories. And I was like, how do they remember those things? And my dad, we would have conversations, and in group he would share stories about our childhood, and I found myself getting really angry with him. Like, how can you remember these things and I don't? And in that process, I got to this place where I was really successful in my business at the time. I was one of those women that I looked like I had it all, and I felt suicidal. And I was like, why am I feeling suicidal? What is really going on here? Yeah. That there's this image out here that looks perfect, and yet inside I feel like I'm dying.
Yeah.
And in that process, that started my journey of questioning what, you know, what can allow me to go from this place of feeling like I'm existing to living and feeling alive in my body, that I want to be on this earth and that I want to be on this plane. And in that exploration, I began to discover just an intense amount of rage
Mm.
that was within myself. And it was kind of funny because I was like, well, look, there's nothing out here that I need to be angry about. But I realized that I was just there. It's like I would get so frustrated, and there was this seething, and I started feeling into my body. I went to this counselor, in her wise ways, she said, you really need to start getting some body work, so you can get connected to your body. I have such a place of gratitude for her, because as I began to explore what did it mean to get connected to my body, I started realizing the myriad of emotions that were being held there, that had shut me down, that had disconnected me from feeling alive. And
Yeah.
as I explored that, what I realized is that that was my survival mechanism, because at a really early age I learned to not feel safe.
Mm-hmm.
And I learned to not feel safe for different reasons, and we each have a story. But in that place, the body completely remembers everything. And it will eventually reveal what our mind conceals and hides from us.
Yeah.
It will come out eventually. And so I started, and at the time my body was screaming in many ways. There was also pain. And so I decided I want to learn to listen to the whispers of my body so that I don't have to hear it screaming.
I love that whispering, listening to the whispers of your body. It's profound, really, and I love that you had that awareness. The screams are what creates the pain, the disease, the discomfort on all levels, right? Emotional, mental, spiritual, and physical. I love it.
Mm-hmm.
And thank you for sharing the depths of what you were experiencing. And I really honor that went through that. And our deepest pain are our greatest gifts that we have to offer to the world when we come through them. So thank you for um, turning that into such a beautiful gift and the work that you're doing now. It's really awesome.
Important. You're welcome.
Yeah, yeah. So when you were working with your mentor and she was encouraging you to listen to the whispers, you said you had body work done. What else did you do to reconnect to your body's wisdom? How did that journey evolve? Like, it was for someone who's totally disconnected from their body. It's like, what is the wisdom that you have to share? What was your path on how you began to reconnect?
Well, that's a great question, Darlene. One of the ways that I found for me that was essential in beginning to reconnect is and I had to do this by scheduling it, first of all, and then I started, doing more than just my scheduled time. I would when I would feel myself feeling an emotion, I would tap in and say, okay, what is that feeling like in my body? But for so long, I had this self-hatred of my body. I felt like it had let me down. I had this place of feeling powerless a lot of times. And I just hated that feeling of just being disconnected, and I knew there was more. And so what I began to do is started to have a conversation with my body. And one of the ways that I did that is I would let myself really observe. So I would pick a body part, and I would let myself really observe it. And I would find myself getting into my head about what was wrong with it, everything that was horrible about it.
I
And
need a manicure, right?
And what I did and what I committed to doing was
So we had a technological goof glitch. I guess when I plugged my computer in, Hangout decided it didn't want to hang out anymore. So this is part 2 of my interview with Teresa Lea. And what was so cool is we were talking about before we started broadcasting again how our practice of being in the body served us. It'd be a freak out time for me and a post body awareness where I'd be going, oh my gosh, this is a mess. And it's just life. Like things happen. And when we're able to stay in our center, it creates that power where we can be open to what else is possible and move forward. So thank you, Teresa, for popping back in again and playing with me. And thank you, everybody, for dancing with the technology piece of this. We were talking about shutting down from the past pain experiences that we've had and how if the pain has come through our bodies that our tendency can be to disconnect because that is the source of pain. Yet that's really where the answers are for us. That's where we're meant to go. So just kind of bring us back up to speed with that. And I wanted to now go back to something, Teresa, that you were talking about before. You were mentioning that when you were reconnecting again with your body, that there was this huge amount of anger that you had, and I'd love for you to talk more about how anger influences our body and how we can use anger to access what you called earlier the whispers of the body.
well, for me, what I found was that anger was a scary emotion, and it made me want to shut down.
Yeah.
Because to experience, for me to feel anger, it on some level was reminding me of the experiences that I had had that were traumatic to my nervous system and to my body that were dealt out of anger. And so anger didn't feel safe to me. And yet, as I began to explore what was this that for me was being held in the body, it was anger. And that anger was holding me in a place of feeling powerless.
Yeah.
It also made me feel like I didn't have choice anymore. Even though I was an adult now and I did have choice and I could step into a place of being actively powerful in my life, my body wasn't allowing me to do that. And there was this blame that was going on. And what I find happens, there's two things about blame that shows up, and oftentimes the blame goes outwardly. It's blaming someone else. But for me, blame was really, I was blaming myself. There had to have been something wrong with me for me to feel so powerless. There had to be something wrong with me for me not to feel like I had a choice. There had to be something wrong with me because of what wasn't working right in my life. And so that anger became internalized, and it was feeding this place inside me that was just turning from anger into rage. And that anger itself, the way it shows up often, the way it was showing up for me, and the way that I find that it often shows up with my clients is it just from a general perspective, it often shows up as self-sabotage.
Yeah.
But the other way that it shows up in our bodies, it oftentimes shows up as that sense of pain. These headaches often show up as a result of anger. Digestive disorders often show up as a result of anger. Chronic pain in your body can show up as unexpressed, unexplored anger. And I was experiencing all of those. And as I began to address my anger, those symptoms began to go away. As I began to allow my anger to become a resource for me to say, something's not right. listen to me.
Yeah.
That was the whisper that says, something's not right, listen to me. We can explore and address this now instead of until it becomes so big that I have to combust and blow up in order to be able to feel powerful.
Yeah.
Because anger is an emotion that can help really move things forward in our body. It can help clear out the body. It can help really, it can be like a propelling emotion to make things happen that we want if we listen to it.
Yeah. And I love that you are offering the invitation that we don't have to run away from anger and that it is an emotion. I used to be someone that I needed to put on a happy face all the time to shove down all of the yuck and the muck that I didn't want to look at. And, to recognize that it's all energy and that it's information. And
Exactly.
how empowering it is when we see anger from that place rather than denying it, discounting it. Because for me, I was shoving it in my body. It was still present within me. It wasn't coming up to the surface all the time, except when I would get triggered. But it was stuffed in. It was actually embedded in my tissues, in my cells.
Likewise.
Yeah. So I love that you're bringing that to the conversation, and that it's really just information that's there to have us take a look at what's going on so we can shift and change it and create something new.
Mm.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So what do you think is the common cause of, well, there's the three hidden things that you referred to, right?
Mm-hmm.
Tell me about those three hidden things and what those common causes are of those three hidden things showing up in the body.
Well, the three hidden things are the things that I was just starting to refer to. It's that feeling of powerlessness that oftentimes we don't want to address because it taps us not only into anger but into grief and into a myriad of emotions and it taps us into fear. And usually anger is oftentimes covering up these other emotions that we've not allowed ourselves to feel, such as fear, such as grief. And because anger is a stronger emotion, we'd rather be sensing into that versus the grief and the fear. So the three hidden things that tend to show up are, number one, that sense of powerlessness, feeling powerless to create a change in our life, feeling powerless to take a stand up for what matters to us, feeling powerless to to be able to not only take a stand but to be committed to something that we say that we want. Because powerlessness often shows up in the forms of various types of addiction. And addictions goes way beyond drugs and alcohol. Addictions can be it can be food, that place of stuffing those
Yes.
emotions down. We can even be addicted to a particular type of emotion, just like where anger can leave that sense of powerlessness. There can be an addiction to anger because it's our way of operating.
Right. It's how we get
So
emotion, right?
exactly, and so there's a myriad of ways that addiction show up, and I do address that in some of the work that I do with clients. But then there's this place of not only powerlessness but blame, and I talked a little bit about blame. And blame oftentimes projects out to others. But what I find commonly happens is when we begin to get connected to our own anger, and we realize that a lot of that blame is self-directed. And when we get stuck in the cycle of self-directed pain, again, that becomes an addiction because there's a lack of worth. There's a lack of saying, I deserve something better, so it's better for me to beat you up. And I'll beat you up before anybody else has the chance to.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so,
Protect ourselves that way, right?
exactly. And then feeling like we don't have a choice.
Mm-hmm.
So there's that cycle that gets repeated that oftentimes don't get address, that powerlessness, that blame and feeling like we don't have a choice. Like I'm stuck in this relationship, or I'm stuck in this place in my business, or I'm stuck in this place in, with my kids. Well, we always have choice, always, and when we can come from the place of saying, I'm choosing to stay in this relationship, even if it's not the way I want it to be, I'm choosing to put that extra bite of food in my mouth, even though I'm already feeling full and stuff. It is a choice. And when we can feel into the body can say, I've had enough. I don't need to take in anymore. Or the body can say, I'm not going to allow you to talk to me that way anymore.
Yeah.
Because so these three hidden things of blame and powerlessness and not feeling like we have a choice often are a result of hidden anger that hasn't been addressed.
Wow. Yeah, and there's those three things. When they're turned around, I know you've experienced this from your clients, it just opens up your world in a huge way. It's those internal shifts that transform everything externally. So I'd love to hear, I'd love to hear what happens for your clients when they're able to uncover these hidden showing up, and when they break these cycles, what does their life look like a before and after? Like, how are they showing up in the world? Just personally, what have you seen happen in your practice?
Well, what I see happen is a lot of women that I work with come to me because they're in this place of feeling stuck, like it's like they're saying, I've done everything that I know to do, and but yet nothing's changing in my relationship. Usually it's their primary relationship, or nothing's changing in, in this chronic pain that I'm experiencing, or nothing's changing in my life and my business, and I'm stuck and I'm just so frustrated and I don't know what else to do, and there's got to be something wrong with me, or then it becomes, or that program didn't work for me, or whatever it is, and it could be that it's just a combination of things. And what I find is when we start addressing, what is the thing that's holding you back? It often comes down to some form of hidden trauma, hidden experience that on some level is internally holding you hostage. And who wouldn't feel anger if they're being held hostage? Who wouldn't feel powerless if they're feeling held hostage? Who wouldn't feel like they've got somebody to blame if they're being held hostage? And because there is, but when we start to access that and we work with that and we change that, then there's that place within the body that says, I can stand up for myself now. I can make committed action and decisive action on what I want to change in my business or in my professional life, in my job. And I can, really just listen to what I need and know that that matters. And so I really work with my clients on listening to what is it that their body is saying that it needs. What are those whispers that allow them to expand and open and lean into something, or that cause them to shrink and step away? And there's a big difference between opening and feeling excited, or kind of maybe not even opening, because there's a little bit of anticipation and maybe even a little bit of fear, but it's not the fear like, oh my God, it's the fear of something great's going to happen. And that means a lot of change, and I don't know what that means, but I'm willing to step off the edge. And
Yeah.
so what I find is that when with the clients, my clients, when I'm working with them, as we work through these things, they go from this place of feeling numb, or feeling like they're existing, or feeling like, even a lot of confusion and or pain, to a place of being able to know what they want and being able to feel alive and that it's possible and being able to take action on that and being able to do it with a level of energy that they didn't realize that they had. Because when we're holding that anger inside, that takes a lot of energy. It drains you.
Absolutely.
So there's so many resources that come available when we start addressing what are those hidden things that really are stopping in your tracks.
Gosh, I love you making the distinction of when you're stepping into something bigger, that it can feel like, oh, but it's different from I can't, fear and closing down and shutting
Exactly.
yourself off. It is, wow, it's something new, and I don't know what's going to happen, but I'm going to go for it. And I mean, I can speak personally. That's what's been my experience with this summit. It's something brand new that's been wanting to be birthed through me, and there's been those moments of, oh, yet it's a good, oh, I feel alive. I feel like I'm whatever's meant to be flowing through me is flowing through me, and not confusing the two, that is good, so it's so cool that you presenced that. I appreciate that.
Well, it is really a big difference, and in learning that, but even for myself, has been really great because it does provide that energy that says, "I'm in, I'm jumping in."
Yeah, I'm going for it, and don't know what's going to happen, but I'm going to go for it because it feels aligned. Don't you feel that there is that palpable yes from your body when you're on purpose, when you are following your heart, when you're really standing in your power and going after whatever it is that you want to create in your life?
There definitely is, Darlene, because the other thing that happens is people begin to reconnect with their passion. Because that passion is what drives our joy a lot of times. That passion is what drives our sense of feeling alive. And 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 I know even for myself, when I've lost my passion for whatever it is that's going on, then it's like I really kind of feel like in this place of like, what else is, what's really going on here? Because I've I'm so committed to listening to that inner wisdom now that says, yes, take this avenue. Yes, connect with this person. Yes, take a stand here. You know,
Yeah.
or no, don't do that.
Hmm.
Not from a place of danger, 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 but no, that is not aligned with what my body feels congruent with.
Yeah.
Because it's when we feel aligned and congruent in our bodies, there's a sense of freedom and openness that's there. And when we're disconnected to that, then there's that place of staying in our heads, and we may be really successful in many ways, but oftentimes many things instead of recognizing something that needs to be worked on earlier, we let it go and we let it go, and the body begins to compensate, and then we end up in misalignment literally in the body because our shoulders start to move forward or our shoulders move up to our ears, or there's pain in our back, and all these things in the body are really sharing with us messages of how we need more support, how we need to let go of the burden of carrying the world around on our shoulders, you know, how we need to be able to just, how we deeply desire to feel that sense of freedom and ease and grace so that that can move forward and be revealed and conveyed in our life as well.
I love that. And um, what was coming to me too, as we were talking about listening to the body on who to speak with or what project to move forward on, or also that powerful no, that no, this is not in alignment with what I'm creating. For me, I feels like this is the precipice of where we are in evolution right now, that we've touched on this a little bit, that our minds can only take us so far, our brains can only take us so far, and what this body wisdom is connecting us to our heart, it's connecting us to our truth, it's connecting us to our intuitive wisdom and our knowing, which I feel that right now with there's so many beautiful things that are happening in the world, and there's a lot of pain that is in the world right now, and for us to create a new earth together, it's requiring us to tap into all of our intelligence, and this piece with the body is giving us access to that greater intelligence. If you wanted just to comment on that, that just sort of popped up.
Well, yes, because we've had a little bit of a conversation about this before, darling. You know, we put so much value in, you know, what's your IQ? You know, your intelligent quotient. And what's your EQ? What's your emotional quotient? Well, you know, now we're talking about the BQ. You know,
Yeah.
the body quotient, where it's that place where the body says, you know, yes, no. It's the place where the body into what's going on. The thing about this that I find is so important, that I feel deeply passionate about, is that, as you know, we in our human form are given this form to live on this earth, and yet we've in our own sense of survival, and we and just in the way the world has been evolving, is we've compartmentalized things so much.
Yes.
And yet and there's value in compartmentalization, because it allows us to create a focus in different ways. But really, when we bring the whole body in with these other factors, the body has its intelligence, it has its listening, it has its sensory component of knowing what's pain, what's not pain. The body, into it, knows more than the mind can ever digest. Because
Nice.
the body in its own energy is connected. And this is something that, you know, it's my truth, it's my belief, and it's something that I work with when I'm working with my clients, but it's that place of, well, we are all energy. You know, we've been talking about emotion is energy, you know, but our body is energy, and yet our body is what allows us to connect in with all those other energies out there, and that allows us to differentiate, you know, what is in alignment with us, because and most of us who have often disconnected from our body are actually highly sensitive to energy. And
Yes.
it feels so overpowering to be in the body, because the body is so sensitive to energy, because of it is energy in motion. You
Yeah.
know, it is energy in physical form and in motion, because everything in the body is about relationships and interconnectedness and interrelatedness, and it's the energy dynamics that play out that create beautiful harmony and synchronicity or discord.
Yeah.
And because those of us that have tended to disconnect from our body tend to be hypersensitive, I don't know if that's the right word, but we tend to be highly sensitive. Maybe not hypersensitive, but highly sensitive. Coming back to the place of body and learning to trust it, so that it can become a place not of protection and walls, but protection and guidance, so that we can understand how we are connected with the world, but also can be our individual that we are through that. And the body is what provides the wisdom for that. And once we can learn to do that as a highly sensitive person, then we can actually bring our message into the world much more powerfully.
Yes, and that it becomes a power rather than a curse or a problem, right? That beautiful sensitivity that we have, we can harness that and leverage that for contribution to our lives and all of the lives around us.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
love that. Well, so for all of our listeners who would love to become more connected and listen to be able to hear the body whispers rather than getting to that place of scream where there's so much pain and angst, I would love for you to offer any empowered embodiment tools or practices, anything that you have found really supportive, that they can take away today if they're just getting started on it?
Well, first of all, just allow yourself to be present with your breath. You know, even just feeling the breath, can create a change in our physiology and our biology. Because normally when we have disconnected from the body, we're either holding the breath in or we're holding the breath out.
Mm.
I'm going to share a little tip here that I've become acutely aware of in working with my clients that is important to recognize. When you when when you find yourself throughout the day, check your breath. Are you holding your breath? And are you holding it on the in breath or the out breath? Because and what happens is, and there's not a lot of research out there about this, so I'm doing some writing on this, so you're going to be hearing more about this. But when we find ourselves holding the breath on the inhale,
Yeah.
there's an element of fear that's playing out, not knowing what to do, and yet we can't. You know, the breath, without breath, there is no life. The breath is our friend. So if we're holding the breath in, then it's harder to really access what it is that we're needing, take the next step of whatever it is that we're facing in our life. And we're also holding in energy, which keeps us from being able to move energy through.
Wow. Yeah, I never thought about it that way. That's so cool. Well, what about the out breath?
If
If we,
you're finding yourself that you're holding your breath on the out breath, and this has shown up over and over and over and over again in my clients, which is why I'm doing writing on this, usually there's an element of shame
oh,
going on,
wow.
which is the other side of fear, you know. So there's an element of shame. And what happens if we're holding the breath on the out breath, then we're not allowing resources to come in. We're not allowing, you know, that can really support us in our healing and our wholeness. And it takes energy to hold that out and to push that out. And so we also aren't able to access the wisdom of our body to really recognize that there's no need to hold on to shame. You know, each experience is just that. It's an experience. And it's an experience that we can use to really build on, because it is what informs us to how we can present our gifts in the world. And yet, when we're left in that out breath, and we're holding the breath there, when shame is taking over, we're shutting down the wisdom of the body to be able to let us to be able to feel how we can be more powerful, how we can be at ease, how we can be contributing, and also how we can access those resources that let us be who we really are. Because when we're holding on to shame, then we can't be who we really are.
Right. Well, shame's not us. It's the energy that's presenting itself. It isn't who we truly are. And you know what was cool too? I was thinking about the out breath. If that's related to shame, it's almost like we don't want to receive life, like we don't deserve it. It's like tied into a sense of self-worth or something.
Well, exactly. And the other piece, that was one of the things I was going to say, so you've got it. And the other piece around it is if we're not breathing in, we're keeping ourselves small, because the breath expands. It opens us up. It lengthens us. It makes us bigger. But if we keep the breath out, it keeps us in a constricted place, and it keeps
Yeah.
us from being seen.
That's so fascinating, and the body is so wise. If we even just observe like how we're using and being in our body, you know, just simple as the breath like that. It's just so rich with information for us, and yeah, you just expanded my whole awareness on the breath now. I can't, you know, looking forward to playing with that. It's true though, just taking a moment to connect to your breath will bring you into the body, as the breath is always happening right now.
And I know that the breath is commonly used. You know, get connected to your breath. Get connected to your breath. We hear that a lot.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't want to I don't want to not bring that into the equation because of how the breath does inform us. You know,
Yeah.
and how, and one of the other tools that I really use is, we've talked a little bit about how taking the time to really touch my body, to feel it, to experience it. What does it feel like? And what is the feeling that comes up when I touch it? When I touch my thighs, I feel anger and hatred about them because I think they're bigger than what they need to be. Or can I connect in with my thighs and feel how they're strong and how they help support me in moving forward in the world? So feeling your body, connecting with it. And another thing that I find is important, and again, this I think is important because we are, I've talked about how we're highly sensitive oftentimes. Paying attention, do you like more pressure or less pressure when you're being touched or touching yourself? And even just kind of like patting on your body, just gentle pat, first one to the other, gentle pat, because then it brings attention to the body and it helps the body become aware that it is here, it has value. And that's so important because what I find is that if we don't bring our attention back to the body, then we're going to continue to live in our heads and kind of like we're going to be on autopilot, so to speak. And I don't want to discount the great blessings that our thoughts bring us, but our body is what allows us to process that thought. Our body is what allows us to take action on that thought. Because we can have a great idea, but if our body isn't connected to it to put it into action, it's nothing but a great idea.
Right, the body is our manifester. So
the body is our manifester, exactly.
Yeah, we're going to bring it forth in the world. It's requiring that our body's on board and is supporting us in it. Absolutely, love that.
And if you think about it, people that you look up to as a leader, they all have this sense of being grounded, of being solid, of being stable. And it's like, God, I want some of that. I want to be more like that. And the body, it's the body that allows us to create that sense of being solid and stable and grounded and connected. Because when we're in the body, and that's the other thing, when I go to have a conversation with someone, whether it's online or whether it's in person, I really say, okay, can I be connected to my body so I can sense what else is going on here? So I can really be connected to this individual that I'm with, because that's what builds relationship, that connection.
Yeah. And when you were speaking of the people that are inspiring us, that we admire, we wish to emulate, and they're grounded and they're centered. You don't ground and center through your head.
No, you don't.
It's not happening there.
No.
Oh gosh. Well, I would love. Thank you so much for sharing those tools. And yes, the breath is simple and it's profound. Also, it's one of those basics that our listeners might have heard it, and yet it is a powerful, powerful tool. So thank you. And then the invitation to connect to our body through touch, through actually sense self here in this moment. Those are so simple, and yet practiced over time, they just really make a huge difference. So thank you for sharing those. And I know that you've got it. Go ahead.
There's one more thing that I would like to share. When you start to feel an emotion, because this is important, whether that emotion is joy or grief or anger or sadness or worry or whatever it is, I'm feeling worried. What's my body doing? And when you start paying attention to how is your body feeling, what's the experience of your body when you take on an emotion? That is a really powerful way to begin to get connected. And one of the things that I often encourage my clients to do too is when they feel an emotion, how does their body want to move? Can they put on a piece of music that if their body moved to worry, what would worry look like? If their body moved, how would they be shaping themselves? Because then they begin to explore their own way of what that is.
Love that. And I love that you're inviting your clients to experience their own way. That's another thing that's really, I believe that we all have the wisdom within, and, you know, we're here having these conversations just to create different points of views and perspectives. Ultimately, though, we do have the wisdom within, and so to honor that and to know that and to look within and to find, how does my body want to move? My body is different from your body and everyone else's body, and every moment is different. So thank you for bringing that to the conversation too, that your body does know, and you know when you get in and ask and get curious. Yeah. Hey, so I know you also been so generous and offered a free gift to everyone that's listening to the summit, which I so appreciate. And we're providing that link down below the video for everybody to go check it out and get to dive more into your wisdom, into your magic. I'd love for you to share with us what that gift is and what it's all about.
Well, it is called the 3 hidden things that are holding you back and keeping you disconnected from your body, and therefore keeping you from allowing you to access the wisdom of your body. And it's www.intouchinlife.com/3 hidden things. And the reason I put this together is because it goes into way more depth than what we've touched here about how those concepts of blame and powerlessness and not feeling like you have a right to choice, how that shows up more fully in an audio that I put together, but it shows up exactly how does that show up in the body. So I go into more details in how does that show up in through the lower part of your body, and through your pelvis, and through your digestive system. How does it show up in through your place of feeling your personal power and your heart, and how does it show up in your voice, and how does it show up in your thoughts and in your feeling connected to spirit. So I go into a lot more detail about actually how that will actually manifest in your life, and I give you some more tips and pointers on how to start working with it right away.
Oh, yay. Thank you so much for offering that to everyone. And thank you for your wisdom and for your contribution to this conversation. You and I could talk about this for hours. I was just like noticing the time. I'm like, okay, I guess we should wrap this up. But I know we could just talk about this. We're kindred spirits on this. I just appreciate everything that you're doing in service to the world and for being part of this summit. And please go check out Teresa's link and dive into some more of her wisdom and play with those hidden, what are they called again?
The 3 hidden things that are holding you back and keeping you from accessing the wisdom of your body.
There we go, 3 hidden things. And thank you, everybody, for playing with us with the technology glitch and for being here. So stay tuned. We have more interviews coming up and more wisdom and tools and tips on how you can experience empowered embodiment for yourself. Until then, bye for now. Have a great, beautiful day. Thank you, Teresa. Bye, everybody.
Bye.